Hello and welcome back to the channel. In today's tutorial I'm going to be sharing with you how to cut a stylish monostrap bustier blouse. So if this is something you like, please don't forget to hit on the subscribe button, give this video a thumbs up. Let's dive right into today's video. So first, here is my pattern paper and I've gone ahead to mark out all my basic measurements, just like my shoulder to bust, shoulder to under bust, shoulder to waist and top length. So for my top length I added 5 inches to get that. Now I marked my shoulder divided by 2 and I added half. Because this dress has a sleeve, I came down by 1 inch for my shoulder slope or shoulder slant, and I'll go ahead to mark. After I'm done marking that, I'll be marking a basic neckline of 3 by 3 inches, which will be serving as a guide when I'm marking out my pattern, and I'll go ahead to connect. After that, the next step is to find your chest line or armhole, which is your bust circumference divided by 6 plus 1.5 inches. Now, I'm going to go ahead to place my ruler and I'm going to connect from this point and I will draw a straight line. Now, I'm going to mark what I have on the shoulder on this part and I'm going to draw a straight line connecting that line. After I'm done connecting, I'm going to go ahead to divide this by 2 and I'll fold my tape mark and I'll be coming in by ½ inch at that point to draw my armhole curve. On the chest line, I'll go ahead and mark my bust circumference divided by 6. And after I'm done marking, I'm just going to go ahead to connect my pattern or connect my line to the shoulder point. So after I'm done doing this, I'll just go ahead and use my marker to outline my pattern. And the next step I will be taking from here right now is to go ahead to mark my nipple to nipple divided by 2. Your nipple to nipple is also your bust band divided by 2. And I'll go ahead to mark this from the bust part to the under bust to the waist and down to my top length. So after I'm done marking that, I'm just going to go ahead to place my ruler and I'm going to connect, drawing a straight line at that point. So I'm going to be using a straight dart for this pattern and I'll be marking 1 inch on both sides of the line. So for a plus size, you can use 1.5 inches on both sides, but I'm using 1 inch for mine. Or if you're busty also, you can use 1.5 inches on that point. So I'll just go ahead and use my marker and ruler to connect to the end point of my pattern and then go ahead to mark on the other side also. So after I'm done doing this, I'm going to go ahead, place my curve drew from the under bust to the bust, and I'm also going to repeat this at the other side of my pattern. After I'm done doing this also, the next step is to go ahead to divide what I have on the shoulder by 2. After your neckline, I'll go ahead and mark. Now from that point, I'll go out by 2 inches for my dart intake and I will connect that line back to the bust line. But before that, I'm going to be replacing what I took out on the shoulder and I'll take it out. So after I'm done marking this, I'm just going to go ahead to connect my pattern. From that upper part, I will take it down to the bust line, and from the other side also, I'm going to take it down to the bust line. So for the part or the 2 inches I took out that I replaced, I'm going to go ahead to place my curved rule and I'll connect it back to the armhole so that by the time you blend in your dart, it's going to replace the dart you took out on the shoulder. So I'll go ahead and mark this out before I go ahead to insert my body measurements. So at the bust, I'll go ahead and mark my bust circumference divided by 4 and I'll be measuring this dart. I'll go up by 1.5 inches. Use that point as a reference, which is 1 inch dart intake. I'll mark and add my sewing allowance. I'll mark my under bust circumference divided by 4, measure the dart intake, replace and add my sewing allowance. At the waist, I'll mark my waist circumference divided by 4, measure the dart intake, replace and add my sewing allowance. At the top length, I'll be marking my hip circumference divided by 4, measure the dart intake, mark and add my sewing allowance. Now I'm going to go ahead to connect my pattern starting from the bust to the under bust and to the waist and down to the hip point. So I'm just going to go ahead to retrace all these measurements at the other side of the pattern paper, and before that I'll just go ahead to cut this out. So after I'm done tracing out, this is what I have. So I had a mistake on this line. I mistakenly marked that line out, but please do not be bothered about that. It's just a mistake. So from there, I'll be coming in by ½ inch at this point. And from that point, I will just go down by 6 or 6.5 inches. It totally depends on what you want or how deep you want it. So I'll just create like a little curve and down to that point. So from that point, I'll be going up, and from my neckline I will mark 2.5 inches, go ahead to connect, and I will go ahead to measure what I have here back and also replace it on this other side of my shoulder this way. So you notice that this upper part is tilted to this side a bit, and I'll just go ahead and then take it up at the armhole. So this is what I have after I'm done cutting or marking out. I'll just use my marker to outline this to make it more visible for you to see. So after you're done marking this, you want to measure what you have on this shoulder because you'll be using it at the back. So I have 5.5 inches there, and at the lower part I'll come down by 2 inches or come up by 2 inches from the lower part of my waistline, and I'll go ahead to draw out, blending my dart, and I'll be taking that line straight. When I get to the midpoint, I'll slant or go out a bit, then blend in my dart, come down by 1.5 inches, and I'll be taking it up. Now I'll also place my tape at the side, and I'll be marking 2 inches from the lower part, and I'll go ahead to connect. So this is what we have for this pattern, and I'm just going to go ahead to cut this out. So if you have any question concerning this tutorial or this pattern drafting, please don't forget to leave your question at the comment section. And at this point, if you haven't yet subscribed, please hit on the subscribe button, give this video a thumbs up, and also join us in our other tutorials. And I also have a second channel, Maki's Closet, where I do both sewing and drafting tutorials. So this is what I have after I'm done cutting out, and now we'll be moving to the back pattern. I've gone ahead to mark out my basic measurement just like we did for the front. The only difference is that I have a zipper allowance at the back. So after that, I'll just go ahead to mark my nipple to nipple divided by 2 just like we did for the front pattern. So my nipple to nipple is 7 inches divided by 2, which is 3.5. So all your measurement is starting immediately after your zipper line. It shouldn't start from the zipper line. Next, I'll be marking a dart intake of ½ inch on both sides, come down by 1 inch from the bust, and I will be extending my dart, and I'll just go ahead also to mark the other side. Now getting down to the lower part, I'll also mark ½ inch on both sides. Sorry, my pattern did not show when I was cutting out that. I didn't really notice that when I was recording. So after this, I'll just come in by ½ inch after my basic neckline at the back, and I will just extend it all the way down. So for this pattern, I'm going to first of all cut out one side and then go ahead to cut out the other side. So on the zipper side, I came down a bit by ½ inch on that point so that the dress won't be popping up. So now I went ahead to mark my body measurement. From the zipper line, I'll mark my bust circumference divided by 4, and I'll add my sewing allowance. At the waistline, I'll just go ahead to mark my waist circumference divided by 4. Measure this dart intake we have here, replace it, and I'll be adding my sewing allowance to the pattern. After that, I'll be going down to the top length, which I'll be marking my hip circumference divided by 4, measure the dart intake, and I'll be adding my sewing allowance to the pattern. So I'll just go ahead and use my curve drew, and I'm going to connect from the chest line to the bust to the waist and down to the hip point. And after this, I'll just go ahead to cut this out before we'll go ahead to alter the pattern of this dress. So after I'm done cutting, I'm going to go ahead to come in by ½ inch from my waistline. I'll extend it all the way up and take it down. This is to get rid of the bulginess at the back of the dress. And after that, I'll be going up by 2 inches just like we did for the front, and I'll connect it all the way down. So next, I'll just go ahead to cut out my pattern and cut out the zipper budge on this fabric. So after I'm done cutting that, the next step I'm going to take is to go ahead to mark the side for the mono strap. So you use this to cut the part that has a sleeve, and the other part I placed my tape and I came down by 5.5 inches. That is what we have on the side that doesn't have a shoulder. That is the off shoulder part. And after that, I'll just go ahead to cut out my pattern. After cutting out my pattern, I'll just go ahead and cut out the sleeve for the dress. So here is my pattern paper, and first I'm going to be marking my starting line for my sleeve, and I'm just going to draw a straight line at that point. Now after I'm done drawing that, the next step is to go ahead to mark my shoulder to elbow point and the sleeve length that you're working with. So I'll be drawing out a straight line at those points to indicate the part for my elbow and also where my sleeve length stops. After that, I'm going to go ahead to mark my sleeve cap height, and to get that is your bust circumference divided by 12 plus 0.5 inches, and I'll just go ahead to mark a straight line. So after I'm done doing that, I'll go ahead to label my pattern, and I'll be marking my armhole circumference divided by 2. Mine is 16 divided by 2. I have 8. I'll add 1 inch to it. The 1 inch is for ease, and from that point I'll connect it to the tip. So now I'll divide this into 2 and mark. From this point I'll also divide again and mark, and I'll come up by 0.5 inches. From the other side I'll fold up and I'll mark, come down by ½ inch. And now I'll just go ahead to place my curved rule from the ½ inch at the center. I'll come up and then take it all the way to the lower part of the sleeve this way, and I'll connect. So this is what I have after I'm done connecting, and next is to start inserting my measurements. So I'll go ahead and insert my elbow measurement divided by 2, and I'll be adding half to it. Go ahead, mark my wrist circumference divided by 2 and also add half to it, and then go ahead to connect my pattern. After I'm done connecting, I'm just going to go ahead to cut it out. And after cutting, I'll be adding ½ inch on top for joining allowance. So after cutting out, I'll be using this sleeve to cut out the off shoulder part of the dress. So now I'll place my tape and I'll come down by 5.5 inches, but because I have joining allowance on top, I'll be adding ½ inch. That means I'm coming up by 5.5 inches. The ½ inch on top will be using for the joining. So here I'll mark 4 inches. So this is like a standard for marking an off shoulder or for a slim person, but for someone that has body a little, you can use 5 inches or 4.5. So I'll just go ahead and connect and draw a curve. Or if you don't want to use that, you can just measure what you have from your front armhole to the back armhole, and you're going to divide it by 2 and connect. So with this, we have come to the end of today's tutorial. See you in our next video. Thanks.